Welcome to Forward Focused. We only have one chance to make a first impression. I'd like to dive deeper into some quick things you can do that will make your first impression the best one you've ever given. Let's dive in. So I'm going to break this up into two kind of parts for our episode, okay? The first part is going to be around, I think, a very overlooked piece of a first impression at times, and that is the handshake, like the initial greeting. And then the second part of today's episode is going to be around some things to remember when you're in the first, let's say, 5 minutes of talking with someone. So you have first impression and then like first 5 minutes, okay? So if you stick with me, by the end of this episode, you'll be able to maximize both of those essences in making that first impression, okay? So here's the first part of it, which is the initial greeting. A couple key things here. So you may or may not know this, but in my role, I have different businesses and different things that I run, different teams I run, different people who report to me. So I'm kind of moving quickly. And I'm moving from event to event. I'm moving from building to building, depending on what business I'm a part of, right? In that hour, half day, or full day experience. The first thing is eye contact is key. And I can't tell you how many people do not make powerful eye contact because they're afraid to look somebody right in the eye, or they're afraid to come off as too intimidating, or to be that weirdo that just stares at somebody's eye. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you want to look somebody right in the eye and smile, and you just say, "Hi, I'm John. It's great to meet you. And your name is?" And if you do that with the next part I'm about to say, your first impression, whether you realize it or not, will be that much more powerful, because humans crave connectedness. And if you're a leader in your organization, remember, everybody's going to make up a variety of reasons why you didn't say hi to them, why you didn't make eye contact with them. It's going to be, oh, he doesn't like me, or he's always so busy, he doesn't make the time. Trust me, they're making up a story in their head, whether they've seen you a million times or for the first time. By making eye contact with somebody, by saying your name and asking theirs, and then leading into the handshake, which I'm about to show you, it slows you down. That's very important when you're making a first impression, because when you're slowed down like that, somebody says subconsciously, this person has their stuff together. They're not frazzled. They're not disorganized. They know what they want and how to get it. I want to know more about that. That's what subconsciously is being said. It comes in tonality, energy, eye contact, what you say, and then how you say it. Energy is contagious. Remember that. And you want people going, I liked meeting him. I don't know why, but I liked him, right? If that's what somebody says to their friend about you after you've met for the first time, you've done a good job. So we got eye contact, we're saying hi, right? We're looking right in their face and we're smiling and we're asking their name. And then here's the key, an effective handshake. Now I know through the pandemic, there's been fist bumps and elbow hits and high fives and just kind of air fives. That's all fine, okay? And at the same time, I believe the handshake will always be alive and well in business, especially in North America, all right? So there's a few things to consider. The first is, do not be one of those people that when you go in for the handshake, you don't make it all the way to their thumb and web, right? So if you look down at your hand right now, look down at your right hand, look up towards, if you're like making a handshake, how your hand would be for a handshake, the webbing from your thumb is where you should be making contact with the webbing of the other person's thumb. You want to be locking that all the way in. I sometimes see people go kind of too short and they grab just the fingers of the person they're shaking hands with. That's awkward. Don't do that. Additional to that, you don't want to be too strong and you also don't want to be too weak. I don't know about you, but have you ever, I call it the dead fish. Have you ever gone to shake someone's hand and it's just like laying there and it's lifeless? That's weird. Don't do that either, right? So you want to be going all the way to their web, making sure that you're getting, a full handshake. 2, you want to be grabbing their hand appropriately, but not just limp, right? But you also don't want to be the Hercules in that situation. We don't need to prove anybody in feats of strength that we're the strongest person in the handshake relationship. Just shake their hand appropriately. And the 4th step would be, don't pulsate, don't shake forever and never stop and just keep talking. Don't pull them in closer to you. Literally web to web, shake their hand 3 to 4 times, say it's nice to meet them, make that eye contact, and let go. I actually had one time I was shaking someone's hand after I gave a keynote, and she pulled me in. She was probably in her 60s. She pulled me in real close to her and just kept shaking my hand. And then she went to turn to introduce me to her husband and still didn't let go of my hand. That first impression was super awkward, and I still remember her in not so good of a way, right? So that's what it starts with. Is the energy contagious? Are you making good eye contact? Are you asking what their name is and being personable? The only reason I'm even starting this episode with this is because I feel like over the last 3 to 4 years, we've lost the art of an effective and high-functioning handshake. I might be wrong on that, but I've had a lot of bad handshakes in the last couple of years, so I felt like it was important. But now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. You only have one chance to make a great first impression. So how many of you have been to a networking event or some sort of an event in the last year, and this was basically how a first impression went? Hi, I'm John, and I work in real estate. I work for Keller Williams, and you know we do a lot of real estate transactions, and I really love what I do. And you know, if you ever know of somebody that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know, keep me in mind, please. And you know, right? The energy is just kind of weird. It's like, what are we doing here? We're talking about what we're doing, not why we do it. It becomes a little just blah. I'm a specialist engineer for General Motors, and I work on, you know, 4 different projects right now, and yada, yada, yada. Again, that's focusing on what you do, not how you do it. So imagine if the speech or the intro was something like this. Hi, my name's John, and I run a podcast and training company. I'm in real estate, and the reason I am is because I love helping people hit their peak personal and professional self. The podcast helps me fine-tune and grow skills of all my listeners. And when they come up to me and say that this episode changed the way in which I communicate with my partner, it changed the way in which I run my business, thank you, I feel fulfilled. And on the real estate side, I like to help people transform their trajectory in wealth building by buying the #1 asset you can buy in the United States, and that's a home. So my goal is for you to live your peak personal and professional self through wealth building and skill development. What do you do for a living? That is a big difference, right? From the first example of I'm in real estate and we sell homes, and do you know anybody that's looking to list or sell or buy property, right? Because it focused on the why of what I do. You now know that A, I'm different than most other people I'm networking with at this event. B, I can tie in tangible specifics of how I'm helping somebody personally or professionally through building their wealth, right? And at some point in that little peak personal professional like line I said, you probably found yourself saying, I would like to know more about that because I don't think I'm at my peak personal self, either personally or professionally, right? So if you think about that, what could you say in your opening line that would get them thinking, I want more of that? Tell me more about that. That interests me. I want to know more about that. So let's give you a setting. You're at a wedding. You're a friend of a friend at this wedding. You don't know, a ton of people. So you're meeting people for the first time. And you're over by the bar. Maybe you're waiting in line for that, or maybe you're waiting in line for appetizers. And somebody says, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm on the bride's side, and, nice to meet you. What's your name? Next question is always what? So what do you do? There's your moment. Well, there's a lot of things I do, Michelle. One thing that I always want to tell people is that I run a podcast and a training company, and I'm also in real estate. And the reason why and how the two work well together is I love seeing people grow their skills, regardless of any industry they're in. The podcast is called Forward Focused. I don't know if you're big into podcasts, right? Right there is an embedded response she's going to give. Is she big into podcasts, right? And then secondly, so I'm also in real estate. So in addition to the podcast, which I help people grow their lives, right? Their life by design, I help people with the #1 asset that they have, their homes, whether it's buying, selling, investing, but building a financially free world through home ownership. What do you do? At that point, Michelle should be locked on to a couple key things I said. Tell me more about this podcast. Yes, I do like podcasts. Here's what I listen to. And then lastly, where do you live, home ownership, the whole dialogue around homes, right? But I started more with the personal side of the podcast. Now, again, this isn't going to hit every time. There's going to be times where you stumble through it, you mess up, you don't nail the speech, right? But eventually you should get into a rhythm of what exactly do you want to say every time you meet someone new. And it's this fine line of being scripted and saying what's in your heart. I know a lot of times people struggle with scripts or dialogues. Like, that's not me. That's not who I am. When somebody says, how are you today? And you say, good, how are you? That's a script. Scripts are everywhere in our life. It's a GPS of where we want to go. You wouldn't just hop in a car and drive to Florida, right? You'd probably like get gas and make sure you have, properly inflated tires and a GPS or a map. You would probably map out where you're going, right? Where you're going to spend the night if it's a 2-day road trip, right? All these things go into it. Well, that's a script. You're scripting what you want your road trip to look like. It's the same thing when you're meeting people. It's the same thing when you're building relationships. You should have scripts or guiding lights of where you want to go, and then you tweak it to the person or the situation that you're at, right? The last thing I'll say about you have one chance to make your first impression is it's how you leave it. Michelle, I'm looking forward to having a blast today, and I'm sure you are too. Here's my card. On there, you can scan the QR code and get more information on the podcast. It seems like you're interested in that. But I'd love to set up a Zoom or a coffee conversation to learn more about what you do and to see if there's anything that could be win-win in regards to our businesses or your development, my development. I just love meeting new people, and I'd love to connect over coffee, right? And then maybe the next day, if you've swapped business cards too, you send them a $5 Starbucks gift card saying, here's a coffee on me, let's chat soon, right? It's all about that follow-up. You want to be memorable, you want to be different and stand out. That is how you can make your one chance at a first impression memorable and one that you can build on to deepen the relationship later. So thank you for listening in today. This was my one chance for you to have a first impression on this episode. If you found value in today's content, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson to be the leader you deserve to be. And until next time, lead on.